Hello, welcome back to Kiana Speaks. My name is Kiana Hamlet, and I have some very important information for you today. So, in a previous episode of Kiana Speaks, I talked about the psychological warfare that is happening amongst the Black community, specifically our Black youth. Now, our Black youth is being targeted so that some people can keep a pipeline for the prison system open, okay? They want to make sure that the prisons that they are financially invested in always have people coming back. And unfortunately, the Black youth is the target to get this done. Now, many people love to condemn the violent rap music, but a lot of people do not know, and even if they do know, they don't condemn the people who are funding the careers of these violent rappers, okay? And a lot of times it is always a European-based company who are not only funding the careers of these rappers, but they are also managing the entire lives of these rappers. It is an entire ecosystem that is created to make sure that our Black youth has negative influences, okay? Now, nevertheless, that is just one end of the spectrum, okay? On the other side, lawmakers are also playing their position in this ecosystem, all right? And what they're doing is they are making laws which make it easier to keep our Black youth in prison for longer times. To be specific, on yesterday, September 16th, the U.S. House passed two bills that strip D.C. of its local power over criminal sentencing, right? And they passed a bill that allows children as young as 14 years old to be tried as adults. Now, I know you're probably thinking, that is crazy. And it is. It's absolutely crazy to even think that we live in a world where grown adults who went to law school and who are in a public service position think that the best thing to do for our nation is to send children to prison with adults for whatever the reason is. Because we all know that anything somebody does at the age of 14 years old is a direct result of whatever programming they are under at that moment. And so somebody at 14 is very susceptible to any type of programming, whether it's negative or positive. So you mean to tell me that there are people who are willing to try 14-year-old children as adults for something that they may have done in which they even didn't have any type of knowledge or wisdom to even tell right from wrong? It is so easy to manipulate a 14-year-old to do something that they shouldn't do. And these people know that, but they still think that justice is trying 14-year-olds as adults? No. This just exposes what the real hidden agenda is. Okay? This isn't about safety nor justice. Absolutely not. It is about control. It's about profit and targeting Black youth. So I wrote a full article breaking down everything you need to know. We're going to talk about the bills. We're going to talk about the lawmakers behind them. We're going to talk about the real winners in this situation and the devastating impact on our communities. So I'm going to read it to you, and you're going to be able to get to know the facts. You're going to understand the stakes, and then we're going to talk about why this matters to all of us. So, again, my name is Kiana Hamlet. I'm going to go ahead and pull this article up, and let's get started. All right, so we are here on my website, kianahamlet.com, in which I host my travel blog. Now, normally, I only post articles about travel, but I do believe that the economy and what's happening in politics is very important to know as we are traveling. So I am going to start sharing articles about important topics on my website. Okay, you can find this article here just by going to KianaHamlet.com and clicking on blog. And once it loads, you will see this article as the first one here. Now, depending on which day you watch this video, you may have to scroll down a little bit, but this is the most recent article as of the time I am filming this video. And I went ahead and created a new category called USA Politics and Economy. So just to give you a little review, these are the other articles that I have, and they're all travel based. But like I said, I am going to start sharing more articles regarding what's happening in USA politics because, in a way, politics and the economy really does affect the travel experiences we can have, whether it's indirectly or directly. But anyway, so let me go ahead and let's get started. I'm going to go back. All right, so make sure you grab your coffee because this is a little lengthy, but you are going to be very, very grateful that you got to hear what I have to say. So let me take a sip of my coffee. You can drink your coffee, your tea, your wine, whatever it is that you have, okay? I'm not here to judge. All right, so the name of this article, DC Under Siege. House bills expand mass incarceration and strip local power. And see, I have a picture here of these beautiful Black children, and then I have invest in them because I want to send this message to you all. We need to be trying to invest in these children, not trying to lock them up. So let's go ahead and get into what I had to say in this article. Yesterday, September 16th, 2025, the United States House of Representatives voted to strip the District of Columbia of local control over key criminal sentencing laws and to lower the age at which a child in DC can be tried as an adult. This is not about safety. It's not about justice. It's about power and profit. And the people who will pay the highest price are Black children and Black families. Two bills passed the House floor, H.R. 4922, called the DC Crimes Act, and H.R. 5140, the District of Columbia Juvenile Sentencing Reform Act. H.R. 4922 limits the district's authority to change criminal sentences and rolls back local reforms that treat youth and young adults differently than older adults. H.R. 5140 lowers the age at which a minor in DC can be tried as an adult in certain serious cases, down to 14 years old. Both bills were carried to the floor and driven by House Republicans determined to override the will of DC's elected leaders. The sponsors and public champions tell you they are tough on crime and protecting residents. But look closer. H.R. 4922 is sponsored and led by Rep. Byron Donalds, and this is a Black man. Let me put that out there. This is a Black man. But that just goes to show you, somebody being Black, it don't mean nothing. It's all about your values. If he has the same values as these people who want to target the Black youth, then he's just like them, and it really doesn't even matter. H.R. 5140 is sponsored by Rep. Brandon Gill, a Republican from Texas. So Byron Donalds is a Republican from Florida, and Brandon Gill is a Republican from Texas. Both bills were backed by Speaker Mike Johnson and Oversight Chair James Comer. This was a coordinated effort to seize power from a local government that disagrees with the majority in the House. Why this matters? DC's home rule is fragile. The district is America's capital, but its residents have historically been denied the same autonomy that states enjoy. For decades, the Home Rule Act has been the thin line protecting local democracy, allowing residents to elect their mayor and council and decide many local matters, including criminal justice policy. When Congress steps in to rewrite sentencing rules and lower the age of adult prosecution for kids, it is not merely tweaking policy. It is stripping power from the people who live there and placing those decisions in a chamber where no one sitting in those chairs is answerable to DC voters. This is undemocratic. It is paternalistic, and it is cruel. Make no mistake, lowering the threshold for trying children as adults and hamstringing local judges' ability to sentence with discretion is an accelerant for the prison pipeline. There is an entire political economy that profits from mass incarceration, like private prisons, prison-linked services, vendors, and a culture that monetizes punishment. When laws are rewritten to lock more people into adult facilities earlier, somebody's balance sheet improves. It is not the families and communities who will pay the lifelong cost of incarceration. Those costs are borne by our children. Experts have long shown that sending adolescents into the adult system increases recidivism, worsens mental health outcomes, and removes opportunities for rehabilitation that are far more effective than adult incarceration, especially for teenagers whose brains are still developing. The raw numbers show the scale of assault, okay? HR 4922 passed the House 24 to 179. HR 5140 passed 225 to 203. These were not unanimous or narrowly partisan margins. Dozens of Democrats crossed the aisle and voted in favor of at least one of these measures, an act that effectively foots the bill for federal takeover of local decision-making. 31 Democrats voted for Donald's DC Crime Act. 8 Democrats voted for Gill's Juvenile Sentencing Reform Act. Without them, these bills would not have passed. So y'all have to peel back on the propaganda. This is off, I'm not reading, I'm just talking right here. The news always tries to pit Democrats and Republicans against each other. This clearly shows us that that's not the reality of what's happening in Congress. These bills would not have been able to be passed if it wasn't for some Democrats agreeing with these Republicans. So this shows, do not fall for the hype on the news, on these news broadcasts, okay? You need to get on congress.gov every single day. Pay attention to who was voting for what. That tells you what they are really about. It's easy for everybody to be pro-people, pro for the people when the camera comes on and when they're in the spotlight, but how they vote every day shows who they really are, okay? So let's go ahead and continue. We must be blunt about motive and effect. Supporters frame this as safety and accountability. But what does accountability look like when it's imposed by people who aren't elected by the people they're overruling? What does safety mean when policymakers prefer punitive fixes that do not align with what evidence shows reduces crime? Investment in housing, education, job opportunities, community-led violence intervention, and youth services. Those are the things, again, I'm just talking right here. These are the things that are shown to fix the issues of crime. Not harsher sentences, not trying people as adults younger. This has nothing to do with being a solution to the problem of crime. This is not going to make it better. And the evidence proves that. The punitive approach puts a $2 trillion moral price tag on the lives of children and then calls the bill a success when incarceration rates go up. That is a perverse metric of safety. So again, I want to highlight this. They call it a success when incarceration rates go up. How was that successful with more people in prison? The only people who think that having more people in prison is success are the people who are financially benefiting from the prison system. That more people in prison does not help our economy. It does not help our communities, because the more people that get sent to prison, and for every person that's sent to prison, there's a family hurting behind that. I have a cousin in prison right now, and he's gonna be in there for a very long time. It hurts my heart to just know that when he first got locked up, it hurt my heart so bad because I was actually really close to him. That he got sentenced to so long. His family, his mother has to live with that reality that her son is going to be in prison for so long. A lot of people who be voting for this, they're not connected to the people. They don't know what that feeling is like, to have somebody you love locked away for a long time. Whether they did what they did for whatever reason, it still hurt. That's pain attached to that. Okay, so this is not success to send anybody to prison. What we should be advocating for is rehabilitation, reprogramming people's minds, being more particular about what type of content is allowed to the public, because they know, just like we know, that what you consume programs your mind. So if you have people who are funding all this violent programming, then you can't sit back and say, oh, well, these people, it must be something wrong with them because they keep on getting locked up. They keep on. No. That's not true. The truth is there are people who are funding this and they call it success when the incarceration goes up. That shows that they are not for the people. It exposes their heart, because if you were for people and you cared about people, you would not call that a success. You would call incarceration rates going down a success, because that would mean that there are more healthy people. That would mean that there are more productive people. So let me just make that clear. Moving on. This is also a racialized policy. The District of Columbia is majority Black. Historically and tragically, Black youth are arrested, prosecuted, and sentenced at far higher rates than their white peers. When you lower the age a child can be prosecuted as an adult, you don't do so evenly across races. You increase the number of Black children exposed to adult prosecution and adult prisons. And again, why would we want to do that? Why would you want to put a child in a prison with adults? That's justice? Anybody who says that is justice is evil. And it's that simple. The result is not only immediate harm, years removed from family, childhood stolen behind bars, but intergenerational damage. Okay? And if you're a Black person, you know it, you felt the effects of the intergenerational damage, because this investment into violent music targeted towards Black communities has been happening for decades. This is not new, okay? Criminal records scar employment prospects, housing access, and civic participation. That's how legal changes become a pipeline that funnels Black children into a lifetime of diminished opportunity. And let's name the hypocrisy. Congress, a body that has repeatedly failed to meaningfully fund social programs or to pass transformative education or mental health legislation, suddenly claims expertise on juvenile rehabilitation when one specific city's local policies, those of a majority Black district, do not match their politics. Pay attention. The policies do not match the politics. This is why they get up and when they in front of these cameras and they say one thing, but they vote a different thing when it's time to show up and do the work. We have to pay attention. Go to congress.gov every evening and you can see what happened on the House floor and the Senate floor, okay? You can see exactly who voted for what. You can see what was passed. Shoot, you can even go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to go to congress.gov for you and let you know what happened that day. Okay? That stuff is recorded. We must start paying attention because these people are fake and fraud and phony. They get up and they say one thing and they vote in a way that does not align with what they stand for. So, moving on. If we are serious about public safety, we fund community programs shown to stop violence. If we are serious about justice, we let local leaders who are accountable to the people they govern, craft policies that balance accountability and rehabilitation. Federal overrides are not reform, they're punishment by committee. The PR around these bills also obscures the real winners. When lawmakers push mandatory minimums, remove judicial discretion, and push more kids into adult lockups, who benefits economically? Private industries associated with incarceration, contractors, phone and commissary vendors, contractors, phone and commissary vendors, and private prison operators stand to make money from sustained or increased incarceration. So let's just make it clear. These are the people who are benefiting from this, not the people. These are the people who are benefiting from this. The people who these elected officials are supposed to be advocating for, are supposed to be making policies for, are not benefiting from this. Okay? The private industries associated with incarceration are the only people who benefit from this. Moving on, the families and communities of those incarcerated children never see those profits, but they see the harm. That's not rhetoric. It's political economy. Policy choices are never neutral. They create markets and reshape incentives. This is a market that preys on Black communities. So when I've been saying that there's psychological warfare going on and that the music plays a part into it, it goes on deaf ears. But let what's happening in Congress, let this open your eyes up to see that no, what I'm saying is very true. This is very real. This is very real. Moving on, we should also call out the actors who sponsored and cheered these measures. Rep. Byron Donalds, again, this is a Black man, the lead sponsor of the DC Crimes Act, advanced legislation that removes local discretion and narrows the definition of youth eligible for rehabilitative treatment. Rep. Brandon Gill authored the Juvenile Sentencing Bill, lowering the age at which a child can be tried as an adult to 14 in certain cases. House leadership, including Speaker Mike Johnson and Oversight Chair James Comer, publicly supported these measures and shepherded them to the floor for votes. That's not trivia. It is the anatomy of accountability. You will hear the talking points. There's a crime problem in the district. We're protecting victims. We need tougher penalties. Those arguments perform well in sound bites, but they don't address the full truth. Data from DC's own police department show reductions in violent incidents in recent years. If public safety were the only objective, resources would be redirected into the community programs that actually prevent crime, like youth mentorship, job training, mental health access, education, and housing stability. Instead, Congress is reaching for the blunt instrument of federal override and prison expansion. That choice tells you their priority. Pay attention to what they do, not what they say, people. Control and punishment over community investment. And this is what they are about, and this is what lawmakers have been about for so long. And we must vocalize our opposition, and we must stand for something that aligns with investing in the people. We also must watch for precedent. If Congress can step into DC and rewrite local criminal justice policy, what's next? Other cities, especially those with majority Black leadership or progressive reform agendas, will be watching. Federal takeover of local policies creates a blueprint. When local governments pass laws that do not line up with the national majority's politics, Congress can step in and wipe them out. That shreds local democracy and makes political power less about voters and more about who controls the federal legislative agenda. For communities of color, who are often marginalized in federal policy conversations. That is a structural threat. For people who care about justice, dignity, and democracy, there are immediate actions to take. First, know the names. Know the leaders and the co-sponsors who pushed these bills. The legislative sponsors and the House leaders who brought these measures to the floor are responsible for the federalization of local crime policy. Second, amplify the human stories. Policy debates can be reduced to numbers in a roll call, but behind every tougher sentence, there is a child and a family. And I talked about that earlier. Tell those stories. Third, support evidence-based alternatives. Community violence interruption programs, trauma-informed juvenile services, diversion programs, and educational investment. Demand those options in place of mandatory minimums that funnel children into the adult system. And finally, hold the elected officials accountable. Some Democrats joined the Republicans in these votes. That must be called out. Elected officials who vote to allow 14-year-olds to be tried as adults or to remove local discretion from a majority Black city must answer to the communities they serve. We need to know which Democrats crossed the aisle and why. We need transparency. And you can look up who voted for these bills on congress.gov. If you go and pull up the bills, I actually have links to them here, and I'm going to show you how to look up who voted for what in just a second. But you can look that up, okay? We are in a moment when policy choices are We are in a moment when policy choices are shaping the futures of generation. And we have to keep that in mind. This is not just hocus pocus, people. This is shaping the future. So we must step in right now and stop this shenanigans and say something about it so that the children of the future, the communities of the future, have the support that they need. We don't need more punishment and harsher sentences. It is proven that that will not fix anything. What we need is more programs to help people with their mental issues, to help people reprogram their mind, to help people know healthy ways of living. That's what we need. Okay, so it's not just about now. Think about your children. Think about the children you haven't even had yet. Think about your grandchildren. This affects them. This affects the kids who aren't even born yet. Okay? The bills that passed the House yesterday are not abstract legal exercises. They are tools that will change the life chances of children in a District of Columbia. As Black people, as mothers, as neighbors, as citizens, we must recognize what this is: a direct attack on our youth and on our local democracy. We must name it, expose it, and resistance. And this is not just to Black people, this is all people. Because whether you're Black, white, Indian, Asian, whatever, the fact that they are normalizing, stripping away local government powers, it says something. It starts in DC, but what happens when they try to do this in every other local municipality, when in other states, in other cities, excuse me. So don't let this become a habit before you say something. This should be alarming to everybody, regardless of your race. Because if they take away if they attack democracy in this way in DC, it's only a matter of time before they start trying to attack democracy in other ways in other places. Okay? Congressional power is not a blank check to rewrite the lives of citizens who have no voice in the chamber. The federal government has a role to protect rights and ensure safety. But that role should not mean stripping local control or criminalizing childhood. Rehabilitation, investment, and community care keep people safe far more effectively than mandatory minimums and adult prisons for children. If you care about justice and if you care about our children, you must oppose these bills and demand lawmakers stop treating Black youth like fodder for an economy built on cages. Okay, and so here I have the links here where you can go and read about these bills directly. Okay, and then here I have references of other news outlets that have covered the same thing that I'm talking about in this article. And then I have links to where the people who were standing behind this bill made statements about it. Okay, again, and then I have here expert analysts. So I have other information. The Citizen Project talks about basically how these bills are not going to make anything safer. Okay, and then this is where the budget office talks about what this is going to cost. Okay, and then here is where I have the link of who voted for what. So if you go here on voting records, you open this up and you can see exactly who voted yay or nay for these bills. And again, some of these Democrats voted for this, and that speaks a lot. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of that article. But let's go ahead and sum this up. So now that we've gone through the full article, the truth is clear. These bills are not about justice, safety, or protecting communities. They are about taking power from local leaders and putting our children, especially Black youth, at risk for lifelong consequences. So here's what you can do. Share this article and video so more people understand what's happening in DC. Know the names. The lawmakers sponsoring and supporting these bills must be held accountable, okay? And lastly, I want you to demand change. Support evidence-based community programs and DC statehood to protect local democracy and youth. This is bigger than politics. It's about the future of our children and our communities. Don't stay silent. Speak out, share, and get involved. My name is Kiana Hamlet, and I hope you have a blessed day.